promise now I'm gonna die. On this day your mother gonna cry. That's when yo, I shot him, caught him like a bot. Clicked up on him like he died just like. They cannot fuck with me, I know. G19 everywhere I go. Yeah, it's a new pack if I throw. Always dirty in my pole. Please don't let cool to get the low. And then the party ain't no party. Walk the rules saying it's a go. Hope this dead nigga in the flow. Done had she freaky. I don't kiss tell girl, believe me. Wanna keep hitting it when your man act up. He don't know you getting even. He won't even know that I'm beating. And the bad turn into a demon. If I let suck me up, I ain't leaving. When she stepping out, I'm the reason. Bitch, I'm YG. Bitch, I'm 2-6. Bitch, I'm MIS. I got so many yachts. Pussy everybody shot. Niggas know what the fuck going on. I'm back and I'm better, nigga. First one to do it and the last one, nigga. Dickhead.
Niggas say why you fucking with PG? Niggas say why you fucking with PG? They gon' broski that hunting blaster. They gon' broski that hunting. Aye. Gang.
Hey, Park E to the AGB, trust me, that's an active pattern. I ain't slapped it one time, I kept on slapping. Go ask what happened.
Man catching a 6-feet man, roll up guns, I'm a Mindy man. Keep my son trying to take man's future, run up his chaps and keep me back.
It's lit. He got hit by the whip back, flipped and dick like chips. And he breath the beef like burger. Bro, don't fry them a purge, I fry that fish. My Aki was salty, missed that trip to the fifth firm. He's got kebab like shish. Fuck your advice, I need hollow tips. Invest in sticks for street politics.
Us man are steppers, them man are not. They're not, cause we glide on ops. Roll up, trying to turn man into pot. Us and the young G's leave red on their block. Man's active, the other side ain't that. I won't smart till the next one drops. Whenever I'm talking that straight facts, I'm from the bricks, I'm watching my block.
Innocent till proven guilty. If you're talking about dirt, I'm filthy. None of them boys ain't touch me, punks. I know deep down they feel me. For many reasons they hate me. I know deep down they rate me. Up blocks on shake mode Haiti. Put my life on the line for AG.
Double tap, then double back. Ops get popped like bubble wrap. Mix up the food, man, double that. I like money and guns and bubble back. I can't wait till gang got another. Can't wait till gang got another. Can't wait for no tech, had to hit the trap. And that girl's a hoe, how you puddle that?
Yo, best in shit, we slap out wigs. And that's the reason that your man does shit. Can't say that, catch my gist. And that's the reason we're harassed by pigs. Fuck the star sign, he deep throat dick. Call her chronos cause she ate my kids. We taped off first and taped off fifth. Bare drenched up blazing empty clips.
Go double tap that Jenny, I fame them up right and glee. I heard the mutes don't like me, vice versa, I don't like them neats.
Blow up the dingle with diesel. But it's petrol, man, buffing. They rap about all of these bootings, but none of their guns is blasting. HRB to the AGB, trust me, that's an active pattern. I ain't slapped it one time, I kept on slapping. Go ask what happened.
Go ask what happened. Go ask who dropped. Go ask why he left his guys and one of his friends got blocked.
PG, yeah, we're active, fam. Them man bang on Snap and Gram. This ain't weed, I'm bagging grams, but still I get my packs and damn, and we're the ones that gang. Shooting shit up back to back, little bro on trap, then pack your bags. Cling from razors, plastic bags.
Elevate! This mix sounds mad.
Kaya Beats.
Let me talk my shit. For the small man giving all the tours I did, how many man more I think? Stand cool with the roaring slim and these little bro sure don't swim. Let's put another nigga in the Morgan.
I Tweako mix this, you know. It sounds cold.
Let me talk my shit. All the smoke man's giving all the tours I did. How many man more I think? Sandal, no roaring slim and his little bro sure don't swim. Let's put another nigga in the Morgan, spin right back, put more on him. I got you to my blade, and bro got Brianni spinner. At least 5 AMs on that sking though, 410 got a couple man on that. Free TT my nigga, filthy when he weighs his digger. Pissed, pump the jam on me, but my CGE broke back. Blacks, memory knocked down, and his own redrins rubbed out. And I got a couple man on my finger, brother, who you got on your name? By 017, you chopped it, we didn't get back for your plane. That year got dropped and got shot and rolled out his grave. Not even half of the man them did. They got randoms and kids, and I've been every block I'm beefing, and I still juice go there, I did. And I still take smoke, go round and round, still tryna smoke, man, no fibs. Still smoke your dead boys, pound for pound, still tryna smoke more, no shit. 7 on my back, no, I don't take orders. That's Woody and Waters, MVP, I'm very important. I've been running this shit in my Jordan, drilling on streets, how many have fallen. No fooling.
Good morning, family. How's everybody doing? Oh man, I don't know what I got my right eye. But holy fuck, it hurts. Well, good morning. Drop a 1-on-1 if you guys can hear me. Okay, perfect. So good morning, right? We just had some news at 10, right? Which I don't necessarily know how much movement we really gotten since 10. It's not really a lot, but overall, kind of looking at gold. Obviously, yesterday what we were looking at, we were looking for prices ideally continue lower and take the lows, which we didn't quite get yesterday. But what we were able to get was a little bit of distro, right, on the smaller time frames. It looks like 5 minute to me had clean distribution, right? Even the 15 minute, from what I was seeing, looked very clean as well. So just seeing how this kind of played out, it did make a little bit of sense as to why we dumped. That person was just sleeping, right? I wasn't really paying attention during London session whenever this was occurring. I went to sleep right around 2 o'clock. So going to sleep around then, I basically missed the high of the day, which I'm normally up for. Kind of salty I went to sleep now because I'm normally up. But 15-minute structure did break, just based off of what I can see here. Right, 15-minute breaks below this low, punch back up to this last up candle before we actually broke down and created that lower low. Then you notice, boom, as soon as we get this initial push back into this last up candle, this trap candle, we break down. What do? Same thing, pop back up, and then this was, imagine 7:45. I think at around 8:30, yeah. So like 8:30 is when we had news, and basically 8:30 was right here. So 8:30, as long as you were in positions at about 8 o'clock, or if you were in position from 3 o'clock in London, right, you would have been rich, ideally waking up. But taking a look at where we're at right now, with just what we were looking at, this is what we anticipated. Like I said, it was just, we wanted to, like I had told you guys yesterday on stream, if we broke above this area, what we would have to see is a smaller time frame distro in order for us to get back in, which we did get. So to me, it's definitely a lot cleaner now that we broke down. To me, I'd feel confident with it going up now. So basically shit on everyone that bought early, all the noobs who thought gold was ready to buy, right? And in turn, I really think that we can get this last final push down into this IPA. I think we more than likely just continue down, maybe for the rest of today, but DXY is also kind of close to the area that we were looking to target in terms of potentially seeing a reaction out of in here, right? Just in this IPA, in terms of the weekly and even daily as well. Really in this daily IPA is where we're looking. So to me, with just dollar right now, this is what we expected. Overall, even yesterday, we were kind of looking at just these two little areas in terms of where we could potentially come to. We had IPA, right, or we had liquidity, equal lows generated there that we came and captured, as well as in here as well we had some equal lows that we came and captured. We filled this IPA, so the dollar ended up coming down and just doing basically what we wanted it to, just a little bit after the fact. So one thing, like I said, that is just crucial to be able to trade is just being able to understand, like a day like today, like I'm not really looking to trade like in my eyes, at least gold, like I would say 100%. I'm not looking to trade unless we could come into that buy area. If we come into that buy area, then maybe I would take a stab at it, just depending on the dollar. But with everything as a whole, right, even S&P, right, everything just kind of already today in my eyes made its move during Asians Tokyo session. So what we could really expect in days like this is during New York, we're either going to reverse and we're going to start to make our way down a little bit, or we're just going to kind of consolidate and we're going to kind of fill in just these higher IPAs and areas like that to then have price continue higher, right? So for me personally, today would be one of those days I would say just like ideally stay off the charts, because it's just like you really would have missed everything, right? Unless you already took positions. Like I said, it's not that there isn't going to be opportunity. It's just everything that we kind of was waiting for in terms of at least gold to happen for this whole week kind of just happened yesterday. And we were able to catch like the in-betweens, right? We were able to catch shorts on the way down. We were able to catch some longs too. So it was definitely, it was a good week overall. But to me, like I said, with the week coming to an end and tomorrow being the final news, I just wouldn't look to position myself before that, because to me, either what the news is going to do tomorrow is going to have us get that continuation towards the downside, or we're going to push down a little bit and then we're going to get that flip towards the upside. So this is exactly what we were looking for. We, in my eyes, shook out everybody that's been trying to buy for the last 2-3 weeks that have been early, and that's literally all I wanted to see. I wanted to see at least all of these lows get taken. So the fact that we took those lows was just very, very clean in my eyes. But one thing I did want to kind of share with you guys, right? So okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a little bit to a trading audio that I think will be able to help you guys with just taking a little bit away. So I'm going to play about like 5 to 10 minutes of this audio, and I want you guys to send out the link to a couple more people in the chat. Let's get like 20 people on. I just got to use the restroom quick, so I'm going to play this audio, and then ideally by 10:30, right now there's nothing really on the charts that I can see, but ideally I'm just going to break down a couple examples of Wyckoff if there's no real setups when we come back after. But I'm going to play about 5 to 10 minutes of this audio for you guys, and I want you guys to take some notes, right? If you guys take notes and post on Instagram, you guys will be entered in a giveaway. I'll be giving away one of these copies of the book. So if you guys want to enter a giveaway for a free book, go ahead and do it. If not, then shit, do your thing.
The market's perspective.
Down.
For the most part, a typical...
Oh.
And interestingly enough, I had to have my trading account with another brokerage firm secretly. I couldn't trade through Merrill Lynch. And there wasn't anybody else in the office who traded their own money. I was the only, unless they were doing it secretly and didn't tell me. I was the only person in the office who was actually trading their own money. Who actually traded, period, other than putting on trades for their customers. And the other part of this is that I also had this, I can't really tell you why I knew this. It's just that I did. It just made sense to me. It just never occurred to me that trading was anything other than about psychology. I mean, the first trading book I ever bought was actually the very first book on trading. The first book that was devoted specifically to trading psychology, which was Jake Bernstein's Investor's Quotient, that came out in 1980. So I was not only immersed in the concepts of trading psychology virtually right from the very beginning, I was also keeping very extensive journals of my thinking process, what was going on, what I was observing from other brokers in the Merrill Lynch office, as well as what I was observing from interacting with my customers. And I noticed we were all kind of conforming to the same patterns, the same problems. but just say that because I did have, I did have this kind of foundation, to understand that it was basically psychological in nature. Because one of the things we're going to talk about, when I get into the skills section of the presentation, is that when you look at trading skills, it's like, well, what kind of skills are we talking about? We're talking about thinking like a professional. We're implying that the skills are all mental in nature, and they are. Because when you really get right down to it, you really start to think about it, what physical skills are necessary to trade? We're not talking about a golf swing or a tennis racket or any other kind of physical endeavor that we're familiar with. What kind of skills what does it take physically to put on a trade? The mouse click, that's it. Your ability to move the mouse and click it on the buy or sell button. It's that simple. And as a result of it being that simple, it's easy to think that, oh my God, trading is so easy. It isn't, as you will probably know, whether you've been at it a long time or even a little bit of time. There are some very sophisticated psychological skills that you have to acquire to get this kind of an equity curve. And virtually all these skills are founded in learning how to trade without fear. That's basically what this whole workshop's about, is learning how to trade without fear. Because that's what's going to screw you up on virtually everything. Everything that you can do wrong as a trader is going to be the result of what you're afraid of and the effects that fear has on your perception of market information. So with my situation, it's like here I'd given all this up to go to Chicago to learn how to trade, to find out that the only people who really knew how to trade back then were people that I didn't have access to. Meaning there were some big names in the industry who never really took the time or expended the effort to find out exactly what it is that allowed them to create a consistently rising equity curve. What they would say is, well, yeah, you got to go with the flow. The trend is your friend. Cut your losses, let your profits run. There's all these neat little phrases, but it's like, who in the hell knew what that meant, how to do it? Yeah, it sounds great. Cut your losses, let your profits run. No, cutting your losses can be extremely difficult to learn. Letting your profits run can be 10 times more difficult than learning how to cut your losses. In fact, it's one of the most difficult things to acquire in terms of the skill is learning how to let your profits run. So it was like all this was kind of building up, and my lifestyle was draining. It was draining my money away. And one of the things that I would say characterized me back then, if I was probably obsessive about anything, it was my credit. It's like my credit was as far as I was concerned, it was like the most important thing in life is to have flawless credit, not just, flawless. And here I'm in a situation where I am truly running out of money. And my trading losses, it wasn't really like I was losing a lot of money trading because I really stopped the hemorrhaging. I wasn't trading in a way where I was actually losing money, but I wasn't making any money. And it's like there was always this little voice in the back of my brain, that would come to the forefront of my consciousness and say, Mark, this ain't adding up. There's something wrong here. There's something wrong. It's like it's not adding up. Then I kind of shove it back there, and it's going to be all right. I'll figure it out. It's going to be all right. Eventually, it got to the point where I was literally out of money, and the only choice I had was to file bankruptcy. Fortunately, I was in a situation where I had two residences, one in Chicago and one in Michigan. And so I had a choice of where I filed. And of course, I filed in Michigan because if Merrill Lynch would have found out, they probably would have fired me. As a matter of fact, nobody knew what had happened. Nobody knew in Chicago. Nobody that I knew in Chicago knew what had happened. So I filed in Michigan. And I'm thinking, literally, because of my attitudes about credit, I'm thinking, if I've got to do this, I'm going to fall beneath the cracks of society and never reemerge. I really believe that. I honestly, God, really did. I just didn't see how it's possible to live after having to do something like that. And of course, what I found is that, when I ended up, what I say in the Disciplined Trader, and I don't really go into a lot of detail on the Disciplined Trader about this, but just to say that what I ended up with was really, I had an apartment, I had my bed and my TV, and when I filed, I was still current on everything. I wasn't even late one day on any of my bills. As a matter of fact, I even called the finance company to come and pick the car up. Well, I wasn't even late a payment. I said, you know what, I can't do it anymore. You're probably going to want it back anyway, so, it was like, come and pick it up. And of course they did. And, what I realized, now you think about this, it's like when you define yourself based on your possessions, just like anybody that loses anything, you've got an internal representation and you've got an external representation. And now there was a discrepancy between what was outside of me and what was inside of me in terms of the way that I define myself. And, so that has to be reconciled. And what I realized, and it didn't even really take that long. I don't remember how long it took, but it was like, one, I still had my job at Merrill Lynch. And so as a result, it's like I'm starting thinking, okay, well, things are going to be all right. I was in my worst fear. That was my worst fear. When the fear would creep up into the forefront of my mind, I was like, that was my worst fear. Now I'm in it. And I'm realizing that, I think I'm going to be all right. I'm healthy. I can still think. I'm going to be all right. And when I came to this realization that I'm going to be all right, this is when things changed for me as a trader. And this is the interesting part about my situation that most people don't have the benefit of experiencing. There are two things. One, I had this foundation of knowing that it was all psychological anyway. So I had all these things that I'd been working on up to that point. And two, when you tap out as a trader, when you really tap out, you don't get to trade anymore because you don't have any money, right? But I was in a situation where I still got to trade. Even though I was working with other people's money, I still got to trade every day. And so, as a result of experiencing my worst fears, coming to the realization that I'm going to be all right, and then at the same time, being in a position where I'm able to interact with the market, it was like, because I didn't have anything more to lose, I didn't. It was like this, the market completely changed for me. It was like I had these blinders on that all of a sudden just came off because the market was different, because I wasn't afraid anymore. I was seeing the same patterns over and over and over again beforehand, but I was seeing the same patterns differently. I was seeing the same patterns from a, let's say, relatively carefree state of mind. And that relatively carefree state of mind allowed me to, like to say, flow in and out of my trades with an ease and effortlessness that I would not have been able to imagine beforehand. And then what happened is that I started making consistent money for my customers. There was like one of these management consultants that came in from New York, and she was going around the office talking to all the different brokers because of whatever it was that they were trying to find out. And she got to me, and by that time I was already writing The Disciplined Trader. And so, I just I started very exciting to say, oh yeah, this is what I found out, this is what I've learned. And her eyes lit up saying, this is exactly what we're looking for. And she was we talked for probably about an hour and a half, and she was all excited. And then she I got to go tell, well, I'm going to say his name, the office manager, okay? She walked away from me, walked over to the office manager. 10 minutes later, he came over and said, pack up your stuff and get out. Right then and there on the spot. Pack up your stuff and get out.
So that was like a little bit too a longer video, which I would highly recommend, right? And if you guys want the link to that video, then just shoot me a DM. I'll send it to the people that shoot me a message. But basically, like I said, when it comes down to trading, it's going to be psychological. Like, how many of you guys struggle to hold your trades? And if it's not holding the trades, then maybe it's just being able to, like, actually just get the position, right? So a lot of people are struggling with things that are more psychological than anything, right? It's not that you maybe can't catch the move. It's that you can't hold it, or maybe you don't know when to sit there and get in and out, or there might be a smaller underlying factor that is just playing more with your mental than anything. So, like I said, just based off of just what was taking place in here, just especially on like the 15-minute time frame, right? What really made this a little bit cleaner, right? Like I said, it was just the distribution that we got initially in here. Okay, so just seeing this, like I said, initially from like the 30-minute and then also like the 15-minute. 15-minute was more or less like you could have played a breaker structure and it would have been okay. It would have been distro, but it would have just been phase 2 in my eyes as opposed to that schematic 1. But you also could have played 5-minute, and to me the 5-minute would have been a little bit cleaner as well. So when it comes down to distro, like I said, what you typically just want to be looking for is ideally you want to see like liquidity being captured. Like to me, even I shorted in here, right? What the fuck? No, that's fried. Where the fuck is the arrow? Oh. The fuck? That on the updated trading view on me? But anyways, sitting here and taking a look at this, I was kind of looking at just this in here as distro, and that last push up I was kind of looking as the UTAD. So I had shorted initially in here leading into the market close yesterday, and I got hit out. And to me, like I said, I would have wanted to see another push above this, which I fell asleep basically before we got that. But at the same token, right, when it comes down to distro and when it comes down to really being able to sit here and understand what you're looking for, right, when it comes down to the smaller time frames, right, like I said, it's the same thing that we look for on the higher time frames, but realistically, when it comes to the distro, like I said, once we get that initial buying climax, which is going to be that first initial, just kind of, like, in terms of the bullishness that we get prior to us getting that buying climax, like, this is going to be the first little kind of pullback that we get, right? And when we're really just sitting here taking a look at price, it's like on the 15-minute, right, initially in here, what happens after just a little bit of buying, right? We get a little bit of a retracement down here. So like I said, when it comes to breaking it down, like 3-minute, 5-minute, smaller time frame would have been like the cleanest if you were to sit there and trying to get like this UTAD or this upthrust, depending on if you're looking at it. To me, on the smaller time frames, it's more of a schematic 1. But if we sit here and we kind of look at it from schematic 2, to me, it was more or less kind of like that. To me, on the 15-minute, especially just because we didn't get that push above, that UTAD. But just because we didn't close above, the fact that we wicked above this area, to me, I would still validate that. So that's just one thing to kind of keep in mind. But when you're sitting here, like I said, you just ideally want to be paying attention to this upthrust. Because in schematic 2, the upthrust is going to be the highest point, but you're still going to be able to get like a little bit of a test area in phase C. But in schematic 1, right, phase C, for sure you're going to get a test, right? So in this case, it's like when we really sit here and we're looking at things from even like the 5-minute time frame, whatever have you not, right? It's like when we sit here and we analyze, okay, where ideally are the 2 tests going to come back to in terms of just entry points? Well, the first test ideally should have came back somewhere in around this area, right? Which we didn't quite get after this. So it's like after this initial push up, unless you're looking at it as schematic 2, then this could have been that quote unquote test. But to me, in terms of that, you're always going to get a test off the buying climax and the upthrust, right, for the most part. Because when you sit here and you look at, okay, where this test actually comes back to, right? Notice this line, right? We have a line on top of the up thrust and a line on top of the buying climax. So typically, we come back to those previous structures and we're gonna dig into them, right? For example, it's like, if we were to find another example, just gonna look for another clean little example. Innocent proven guilty. There was literally an example the other week that was so clean. I'm just trying to find that example. Because it was like literally like the cleanest dish dried scene. I can't remember what time frame it was on either. I need to go look at my I need to go check my one of my chats because I had just marked that shit up. But basically, if we were to even sit here and kind of take a look at, let's say even this area. This area didn't look as clean, but it was kind of the first area that I could kind of just see right off the rip, okay? So in terms of this, right? Initially, what we typically look for, like I said, in that first initial reaction, right, that buying climax, you typically, ideally, what I like to see is a break of structure on at least the 15-minute or the 5-minute time frame. So what I mean by obviously breaking structure is if we're bullish, to me, as soon as we close below like a previous lower high, right, or high or low, depending on whatever you're looking for, if you're looking for buys or sells, once we break that structure, to me, I'm looking for instantly a pushback to take the high, right? So to me, when I mean break a structure, I just mean us simply closing below that previous low or that previous high, whatever we're looking to do, buy or sell. And then ideally what you want to be doing is looking for that retracement back up. Okay, so in terms of phase D or like phase B, what I'm looking for, ideally I want to see this first initial buying climax. I want to see the high get taken. Okay, that's how I know this is that first step of distribution or accumulation. When we take the low and then we instantly come back up and we make a new higher high or a new lower low. So the fact that we've made that high, right, now what do we sit here and do? Okay, so we're going to sit here. We're going to take a line from our buying climax. Because remember why? I said that these are ideally going to be our re-entry points. So I'm going to really break down why and how. Okay. Broad day. Right, so when we come back here and we look at phase B, what do we see? We see this up thrust. So this up thrust comes directly above this buying climax, and then typically what do we see? A little bit of retracement to the downside. So what ended up happening after here? Right, this is our buying climax. Right, so buying climax is in there. When it comes down to phase B, what we're literally just looking for is that buying climax to basically be taken. Which then, what do we get? We get our up thrust. Right, up thrust is always like such a funny, like, I don't know. Up thrust and then up thrust after distribution. It's like a girl asks you, what do you want to do tonight? I want to up thrust. Oh man, oh, sorry, that was just funny. But then ideally this UTAD, what we really have to pay attention to is that it's gonna come above the previous buying climax and the up thrust. Okay, so in this particular case, you can see what do? We come directly above this buying climax, this up thrust. So that third push up, it's basically going to be that third consecutive sweep up that takes that high, is going to be that UTAD, and that's typically where you're going to see just that first initial retracement, okay? So when we sit here and we even take a look at price, okay? So for the most part, this is why I said, like, this wasn't, like, necessarily the most cleanest, just because normally we'll actually come back and touch this up thrust. So that's why I was saying, like, I was looking for an example quickly, but I couldn't find one. I'll probably be able to find one after this. But realistically, right, when it comes down to the test area, right, the test for the most part is usually going to come back and it's going to hit this up thrust and the buying climax. But in this particular case, right, just being able to understand wick off, right, we identified this whole schematic, right, this up thrust after distribution, and then all we have to do now is just basically merge in these institutional concepts that we have. Nah, they really fucking changed all this shit. Where is my shit, bro? I feel like a fucking bot. No cap, I feel like a bot. Where's this box? Oh, okay. I was like, holy fuck. They changed 3 buttons and now I'm a bot with this shit. But what we notice, right, is when it comes down to institutional areas, right, when we really pay attention to those last consecutive up candles, right, the trap candle, right, you can see we have this area right here, right, traps buyers before we drive price down. Then we have this insufficiency here, which is just fairly clean in terms of seeing price fill to then get that continuation to the downside. Okay, so just on the 15-minute, like I said, that's like one example of distro, right? But really, we could sit here and we could find like tons of other areas too, where it's like virtually the exact same type of scenario, right? So if we were to sit here, for example, yeah, fuck, I forgot how long ago this example was. It was this year for sure. I just can't find it. I can't remember what time frame it was on. I want to say it was in like March or May. It might have been May. I want to say May is when we started selling off. Okay, so like even for example, right, if we sit here and we kind of look at overall this whole area, right? So in my eyes, you could really look at this as a higher time frame distro as well, right? With just everything that was taking place over here. To me, this would be more of like a 4-hour, right, distro. So in terms of that, we have our buying climax. We have our up thrust, right? Our up thrust after distribution. Where does price come back to test after our up thrust? No coincidence, boom. So this is actually a trade that we caught, right? So this is the trade that I was saying. This is the exact same trade I was thinking about. If you guys go back to my YouTube and you guys go to May 10th this year, you guys will see us literally catch this move from 2045. You'd still be in profit to this day, okay? So we called this out, and I called this out early, right? But notice how, in terms of this, right, we have this buying climax. Why? Because like I said, initially, the whole time we were kind of walking price up, right? To me, when it came down to the hourly time frame, we actually broke structure on the hourly. So in here, once we broke the hourly, like I said, as long as we break a 15-minute structure, that's all I need to see. 4-hour doesn't need to break on this first little push up, because when we break structure on the hourly, and then we immediately make a new high, and then we immediately basically just push down, that's ideally what you want to see. But if you really just look at how accurate this is when it comes down to the up thrust, for the most part, this is how efficient your test re-entries are going to be able to be. So you could literally miss all of this bullshit just to then catch this, to then have this move. Okay? It's like, if I were to ask you where you would rather trade in, would you rather trade in this consolidation, or would you rather trade in this just continuation to downside? It's like a lot of people would rather just trade the continuation. So this is why, like I say, you just want to start training your eyes to be able to see. It's basically, like I said, a little pop up. Then that third pop up is going to be that UTAD. That third pop down on the flip side is going to be that spring, and that's ideally where you're going to be looking for price to be getting just reactions out of. So even today, like I said, it's like we had like 15 minute, we had a smaller time frame distro, which was pretty clean, right, when it comes down to what it is that we're looking for. But then at the same time, right, we had the overall confluence with the dollar, bullish dollar, right, with us just anticipating price to come into this area now for a while, right? Basically, since we reacted out of this bottom weekly area, we've been predicting DXY to come here. So this is why I tell you, if you sit here and you pay attention to the weekly, the daily of DXY, you're not really concerned about the in-between, because yesterday you would have sat there and you'd have been like, oh my god, dollar's going to go down, because it did look like it's going to go down. You know, that's why it was pissing me off. I'm like, why is the dollar going down? Like, it shouldn't, right? But all we really were doing was shaking out everybody who kind of sold early, right? And that's exactly what we did, right? I sold, and I didn't get back in, like I said, because of the simple fact that I was just looking to have prices develop a little bit more, and it developed the exact way that we did. But like I said, shit, sometimes you're asleep, sometimes you're awake. But at the same time, like I said, it's just, I'm not tripping, because I know that ideally price, like, shit, it did exactly what I knew it was going to do. It's just now being able to sit there and just ideally be awake for the positions, right? There's nothing you could really do if you're sleeping during like Tokyo or London and things play out. So I never really get upset when things play out. That's why I like, normally I just take the day off when it comes to trading, when we kind of react like this out of these certain areas. But when it comes down to everything, like I said, there's not really any kind of like position like entries that I'm personally looking at per se today. Nas broke structure on the 15 minutes, so that's one thing I'll say. We broke structure here. We might see a reaction out of Nas for here. So I could see Nas shorts potentially, depending on what 30's doing. Yeah, 30 looks like we're going to go down too. So I could see Nas shorts either out of here or out of here after that break of structure. That's really kind of what I was waiting for, to see if we could get any type of break structure, which it appears as though we did get on Nas. So like I said, we may potentially see price react out of here, but we also may see price continue higher. So if you were to get in, give or take from like where price currently is at, maybe about a 30 point stop if you have it at the top. If you just have it above the immediate high, it would be about like 17 points, give or take. So to me, it wouldn't be too bad of a R&R if you really were to look at it, right? About 20 points. To me, to target, like to me, easy target would be just seeing us make our way down. I would say even to the low of yesterday, right? Because overall, Nas, if you took the longs yesterday, you would have been able to hit that 1 to 23, right? We literally were able to catch this re-entry on the 5 minute yesterday, right? Just with no drawdown. So when it came down to Nas, like I said, like we really caught a lot of good moves this week when it came down to position. Like even with gold, like I didn't personally catch it, but I saw a couple people in the chat that were able to catch like little bounces, whatever not. But I just thought it was interesting as well that we were just right with the overall direction. Like I said, it was just, that was the one thing that we kind of expected. And like I said, when you get confident with your psychology when it comes down to trading, you just, like, it's easier to be able to take these particular positions. But I would say Nas, you could potentially short right now. I personally did myself. And I would look to break even, like, basically in like 100 points or so. Like I think we're really just gonna fall over in terms of the indices, right? So for me, like I said, that could potentially mean that on DXY we might start to see some type of exhaustion there. and even dollar or gold, we could potentially start to see us get that reaction to start going towards the upside. I would say that gold, I'm not really gonna buy until accumulation, until we get some clean accumulation. Just at this particular moment, just because, like I said, with the dollar overall, we could still go a little bit lower for gold before we actually get that continuation towards the upside. So, yeah, in terms of that, family, if you guys took Nas, like I said, first target would be about like 100 points, give or take. It would be about like a 1 to 5, 1 to 6. If you had your Titan stop loss, it would be about a 1 to 8.88. Right. Drop a Nas if you guys are a Nas Amino. I hope at least 1 or 2 of you guys took it with me. I'm happy I looked at it when I did, because if we looked at it like literally 1 minute later, it would have already been 25 points running. So in terms of that, if you guys got any type of value, make sure that you guys leave a sub. Make sure that you guys turn on the post notifications so you guys don't miss out notifications when I go live for stream. But in terms of that, family, if you guys are looking to get tapped into mentorship and actually get plugged into my team, shoot me a message. I have a couple spots open for this month. But in terms of that, family, I appreciate you guys. I'm going to catch you guys on the flip. Peace.